I thought that I would do my PLN responses as a couple of screencasts because I've been working with PLNs and using them, teaching them, teaching teachers and teaching students how to use them for at least 10 years now. So looking at this, a PLN is much more than just somebody consuming content. I thought I would show you some graphics that I've used and some pieces of presentations I've used to get that point across since that was the prompt this time. And here you can see this is one of my older presentations for PLNs. Some of the stuff has lasted and some of it has not aged well. We can look for things like that. There might be references to MySpace and other things like that. Um, but getting across, oh, here you go, right? So, what is these? And I'll talk about this in another presentation, the difference between an anchored and an unanchored PLN. But Google Plus and Facebook. Does anyone use Google Plus anymore? Wikis also were really big for a little while. Digo. I think many of these have been kind of overtaken by other tools to do certain things, but that's not really the topic today. So let's take a look at this graphic. This is one of my favorite, and reference right there, the citation right there. Um, Look at it. So basically, you got your analog materials that you've lived in and you've consumed them in your analog life, right? Books, research, experience from the classroom, from college, from your personal reading, whatever it is. This all becomes expert knowledge. Now, I think in a more modern kind of graphic, we kind of like have two things feeding into the expert knowledge, both the books, research, and experience, and your PLN. But here, and then, like when this was all getting going, and when you're introducing PLNs to people, you want to distinguish, like what's the difference between a PLN and the books and research. So, that idea that you have an analog collection of materials and experiences and resources and a digital collection of those things, I think it gets the point across a little bit more clearly. So, these experts that you've got, they develop expert knowledge that is fed into them, and then they, like that knowledge kind of goes into the web. And here they call it a knowledge pipe. I don't think it evokes the web very clearly. But again, this is about getting through that analog knowledge becomes digital knowledge, and then the cycle repeats. So how do you get to this expert knowledge? You can't go to a professor's classroom all the time. You can't, have the experiences that someone in Japan does. Like if there's a particular kind of, like, let's say when the first lesson studies came out, you had to be in Japan to learn what that it was. And then it was, spread everywhere, of course. But so it goes into the pipes, gets online, and then you filter it through your various kind of anchored and unanchored tools, your Twitters, your Facebooks, whatever it may be. And it comes to you. And then, of course, you make resources and you give lessons and you lead workshops, and those personal resources become your own. And then those also, either in an analog way, but of course much more likely in a digital way, they are shared with other experts that are developing around the world. And I found this is usually a pretty good way of explaining what a PLN is all about. And it's a global staff room. And another useful graphic I found is when people are kind of learning what it's all about, everywhere you learn in the world is your personal learning environment. Okay, so analog and digital learning environments live within the PLE. Then there's your PLN, of course, your personal learning network, which is a combination of the digital tools and the analog tools, like I just said earlier. They both filter into that. And so your PLN lives within here. Now, I think that gets across, like, with the message and everything. But when I started teaching another group of people they were confused by the blue circle, being is the PLN, and then this sweet spot with, the fold over from all four of these things, but really focusing on the three in the center, I suppose. They were confused by that. They didn't want that, they didn't want PLN repeated. And those people were my students, because I also use this graphic and this graphic to introduce students to personal learning networks and professional learning networks. And this was a big push several years ago when I was teaching at the International School of Curitiba. We really wanted students to develop at a very early age, ninth and 10th grade, we wanted to develop PLNs so that they became self-directed learners, following the ATL skills of the IB, following the goals of the IB to be independent. We really wanted to give them the tools to be independent. So we got them to open up LinkedIn accounts. We got them to learn how to, Twitter. Nobody wanted to use Twitter back then because Facebook and Instagram were all the thing. And we slowly corrupted them to use their personal Facebook and Instagram accounts for their professional lives as well. And eventually that stopped being a problem because they all migrated to Snapchat and TikTok, which are not really suitable, I would say. I mean, people can push it and say like anything's suitable for a PLN. I think that Snapchat and TikTok have become so popular because from a teenager's eyes, they cannot be corrupted and they cannot be used in any kind of professional way. They're just for those entertainment purposes of taking photos and filming things. So anyway, back to this whole notion. We changed it from back here. We changed it from the PLN to the sweet spot. The sweet spot is where you want to live. This is where you share all your information. This is where you become a richer person. You can see we surrounded that by pictures of chocolate just to get the idea across to our teenagers and to torture them. Like, why not, flash images of chocolate in front of them during the middle of a busy school day? So I hope that sharing was that'll prove useful. I'll share a couple of other ideas to answer the other questions about PLNs. But for today, that's how we got across that PLNs are not just about consuming, but also about producing and sharing. Thank you all.